Red Rock Canyon, Arizona Territory, August 15, 1887. The bullet tore through the air 2 inches from Elijah Carson's skull, close enough that he felt the heat kiss his temple. Rock exploded above him, showering his face with red dust and ancient stone. He pressed his back against the boulder, breathing hard, tasting copper and fear. His shirt stuck to his ribs, soaked through with sweat, and something darker along his left side. 18 rounds gone, 4 left in the cylinder. Across the canyon floor, 30 yards distant, Nalnish fought like thunder made flesh. 6 feet 3 inches of Apache warrior, moving with a grace that defied her size. She had a knife in one hand and a rock in the other, and she was using both with deadly precision. A man screamed. The sound echoed off the canyon walls, bouncing back and forth until it became something inhuman. Victor Klein's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and cold as January wind. "You can't run from this, Carson. You made your choice when you opened that cage." Eli closed his eyes. The world spun. Pain radiated from his shoulder where Dutch Keller's bullet had punched through meat and muscle. His right leg wouldn't hold weight anymore. Blood pooled in his boot, warm and thick. He thought about Sarah, about her grave behind the ranch house marked with a simple wooden cross, about the promise he'd made to her 3 years ago standing in the rain while they lowered her into Arizona clay. "Be a better man, Eli. Whatever happens, be a better man." He opened his eyes, checked his cylinder. 4 rounds, maybe enough. The sun hung low over the western ridge, painting everything in shades of amber and rust. Beautiful, he thought. Beautiful and brutal, like this whole goddamn territory. Nalnish dropped another of Wade's men, and Eli made his decision. He stood. 36 hours earlier, Carson Ranch, 12 miles east of Silver Creek. August 14th, 1887, 5:03 a.m. The rooster didn't crow anymore. Eli had eaten it 2 weeks back, roasted over mesquite with the last of his salt. Now the sun just came up silent over the Sonoran scrubland, touching the broken fence posts first, then the empty corral, then finally the ranch house itself. Adobe walls, tin roof, windows that needed replacing 5 years ago. Eli sat on the porch barefoot, watching the light change. A bottle of whiskey stood on the plank floor beside him, half empty or half full, depending on how you wanted to lie to yourself. He'd been lying to himself for 3 years now, maybe longer, maybe since Camp Apache back in '79 when he was still young enough to think killing made you a man. The letter sat on his lap. He didn't need to read it again. The words were burned into his brain the way brands burned into cattle hide. Notice of foreclosure. Amount due $612. Final date August 21st, 1887, 7 days. He had 7 days to come up with money he didn't have for a ranch that barely deserved the name anymore. 300 acres of dust and mesquite and memories. Sarah's grave out back. That was worth something, wasn't it? You couldn't put a price on that, except the bank could. The bank put a price on everything. Eli picked up the bottle. Put it down without drinking. Small victory. Sarah would have been proud. She'd spent the last 6 months of her life trying to get him to stop, and he'd spent those same 6 months promising he would, right after just one more, just to take the edge off, just to get through the day. She'd died anyway. Tuberculosis didn't care about promises. The sun cleared the horizon, and Eli stood. His knees popped. 38 years old, and his body already sounded like kindling breaking. 10 years in the cavalry would do that. 10 years of riding hard, sleeping rough, and killing people who'd been living on this land since before his grandfather was born. He walked inside. The house smelled like dust and loneliness. Sarah's things were still everywhere. Her brush on the shelf, her shawl over the back of the chair, her Bible on the table open to Psalms like she'd just stepped away for a moment and would be right back. 3 years. 3 years, and he still couldn't put them away. Eli splashed water on his face from the basin, looked at himself in the cracked mirror above the washstand. Gray threaded through his beard now, lines around his eyes deep enough to plant seeds in. He looked old, looked used up, looked like a man who'd run out of chances. Thunder rumbled in the distance. No, not thunder. Wrong season for thunder. Eli's hand went to the Navy Colt hanging on the wall, the old cavalry piece he'd carried from Bozeman to the border. His fingers touched the grip and muscle memory took over. Check the cylinder. 6 rounds. Always 6 rounds. The sound grew louder. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses coming fast from the west. Eli stepped onto the porch, gun in hand, but held low, non-threatening. Professional. 4 riders topped the rise silhouettes against the morning sky. They rode like men who owned the world, backs straight, reins loose. Expensive horses, good tack. These weren't drifters. The lead rider raised a hand. The group slowed to a walk, then stopped 20 feet from the porch. Dust settled around them like a curtain falling. Clayton Wade sat his horse like a general reviewing troops. 52 years old, maybe 55. Black suit despite the heat. Silver watch chain. Eyes the color of January ice. Eli had never met the man, but he knew the name. Everyone in the territory knew the name. 3 men flanked Wade. Hard cases, all of them. The kind of men who wore their violence like comfortable clothes. Wade smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Elijah Carson, former Sergeant 4th Cavalry Regiment, distinguished service in the Indian campaigns, honorable discharge 1881, married Sarah Whitmore 1882, widowed 1884, current debt to First Bank of Silver Creek $612. Wade's smile widened. Am I missing anything? Eli kept the gun low, kept his voice level. You're on private property. Private property. Wade tasted the words like wine. Interesting phrase, considering the bank owns more of this land than you do, Sergeant. Or should I say, considering the bank will own all of it in 7 days. 6 days now, sun's up. Wade laughed. It sounded genuine, which made it worse somehow. I like you, Carson. Practical. No bullshit. That's good. That's exactly what I need. He dismounted. The 3 men stayed mounted, hands resting casually near their guns. Eli recognized the formation. Cavalry tactics. Pin the target, maintain fire superiority, control the space. One of Wade's men was former military, probably the big one on the left, sitting his horse with that particular straight-backed discipline that never quite washed out. Wade walked to the porch, stopped at the bottom step. I heard you're a man of flexible morals, Sergeant. Don't traffic in human lives. I'm not asking you to. Wade reached into his coat. Eli's gun came up 6 inches. Wade froze, then slowly, deliberately pulled out a leather pouch. He tossed it onto the porch. It landed heavy coins clinking inside. 3 days, Wade said. I need you to babysit something for 3 days. That pouch contains $500 in gold eagles. Pure gold Carson. 25 coins. You can count them if you want. Eli didn't move. What am I babysitting? Does it matter? $500 for 3 days of work. That clears your debt with $200 to spare. Buys you time, buys you choices. Wade's eyes glittered. I know what you did in the war, Sergeant. I know about Camp Apache, so don't play moral with me. We both know what you're capable of when the price is right. The words hit like fists. Camp Apache. 1879, the mission they never talked about, the one that didn't make it into the official reports. Eli felt his jaw tighten. I was following orders. And I'm offering you money. What's the difference? Silence. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals. Eli watched it for a moment, envying its freedom. What happens after 3 days? I come back. I take my property. You never see me again. Wade smiled. Unless you want to. I pay well for reliable men, Carson. This could be the start of a beautiful arrangement. I need to see it first, whatever it is. Wade nodded like he'd been expecting this. He turned, gestured to his men. Show him. 2 of the riders dismounted. They walked to a covered wagon Eli hadn't noticed pulled up behind the horses. Canvas tarp covered something large in the bed. The men grabbed the corners, looked at Wade. He nodded. They pulled. The tarp flew back. Eli's breath stopped. The cage was 8 feet square, constructed from iron bars, thick as a man's thumb. Railroad steel, the kind they used for prison cells. Inside, suspended from a crossbeam by rope tied around her ankles, hung a woman. She hung upside down, arms bound behind her back, long black hair touching the wagon bed. Blood had pooled in her face, turning her lips purple, her skin mottled and dark. But her eyes, God, her eyes, they were open, aware, burning with something Eli hadn't seen in another human being since the war. Pride. Pure, unbroken, terrible pride. She was massive, not fat, but solid, muscular, built like the Apache warriors Eli had fought a lifetime ago. 6 feet tall at least, maybe more. 240 pounds of bone and sinew, and absolute refusal to submit. And Eli recognized her. The scar. Left shoulder shaped like an X, where someone had tried to mark her like livestock. He'd seen that scar before 8 years ago during the chaos at Camp Apache. She'd been younger then, faster, killing 2 of his men with a knife and her bare hands before disappearing into the desert with 5 children in tow. She recognized him too. He saw it in her eyes. The flicker of memory, then something harder, colder. "Nilnish," Wade said, pronouncing it carefully, like a man handling a valuable but dangerous object. Chiricahua Apache, cousin to Geronimo himself, or so I'm told, killed 2 white men last June. Slave hunters, actually. They were trying to collect some Indian children for the orphanages. He smiled. Or the brothels. Markets fluctuate. Eli's stomach turned. She killed them protecting children, slit one's throat, broke the other's neck with her bare hands. Quite impressive, really. Took 6 men to bring her down. They shot her, beat her, and she still wouldn't stop fighting. Had to hang her upside down just to transport her without losing fingers. Wade walked closer to the cage. Nalnish's eyes tracked him, but she didn't move, didn't speak. "There's a circus in Denver. They pay top dollar for specimens like this. $5,000 for a full-blooded Apache warrior. Female this size, probably double. They'll put her in a cage, let people gawk, maybe make her fight bears or some such nonsense. Entertainment for the masses." He kicked the cage. The iron rang like a bell. 3 days, Carson. Keep her alive. Keep her secure. Don't get any ideas about setting her free or claiming some moral high ground. You killed enough Apache at Camp Apache to stock your own circus. This is just business. Eli stared at Nalnish. She stared back. There was no fear in those eyes, no plea, just that burning, endless pride. And beneath it, something else. Recognition. Not of his face, but of what he was. Another killer. Another man who'd chosen survival over honor. Wade pulled out a second pouch, opened it. Gold coins caught the morning sun. 300 more. "Tell you what, Sergeant, I like you. Let's make it 800 total. 500 in the first pouch, 300 in this one. That's 200 over your debt. 6 months of breathing room. All you have to do is not ask questions and not develop a conscience." Eli thought about Sarah, about the medicine he couldn't afford, about the doctor in Santa Fe who'd wanted $50 up front, and how Eli had drunk his way through $47 the month before she got sick. He thought about the children Nalnish had saved, about the 2 men she'd killed to do it. He thought about Camp Apache, about the Apache woman he'd shot in the back while she was running, about how young she'd been, about how she hadn't been armed. Wade waited. The hawk overhead cried out sharp and clear. Eli reached down, picked up both pouches. The weight of them felt like stones tied around his neck. 3 days, he said. Then you take her and never come back. Wade's smile could have cut glass. Pleasure doing business with you, Sergeant. 10:47 p.m., same day. The cage sat in the yard like a monument to everything wrong with the world. Wade's men had unloaded it 6 hours ago, positioning it in the center of the open space between the house and the barn. Strategic placement. Impossible to approach without being seen from multiple angles. Professional. Eli sat on the porch 15 feet away. The Navy Colt rested on his thigh. He'd cleaned it twice since Wade left. Loaded, unloaded, loaded again. Old habits. Nalnish hung in the darkness. 22 hours upside down now. Wade had said they'd strung her up 3 days before that during transport. 22 plus 72. 94 hours, with blood pooling in her head, pressure building behind her eyes, her brain slowly swelling against her skull. Most people would be screaming, begging, broken. She just hung there, breathing, watching. Eli stood, walked to the cage. The moon gave enough light to see by. He could hear her breathing, slow, controlled, like she was meditating, not dying. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened, found his. One slow nod. Eli went to the well, drew water, came back with a cup. He knelt beside the cage, reached through the bars. The cup was tin, dented, the same one he'd drunk from for 15 years. He pressed it to her lips. "I'm not trying to hurt you." She drank, small sips, careful. When she'd had enough, she pulled back. Her voice came out rough, damaged from hanging, but clear. "White men always say that. I'm not like them." Her smile was terrible, all teeth and truth. "Not yet." The words hit harder than any bullet Eli had ever taken. He stood, paced, came back. "I need the money. I'm not proud of it, but I need it. I need freedom. We all need something." Silence. The desert at night made its small sounds. Insects, distant coyotes, wind through mesquite. Eli sat down hard, back against the porch post. "Wade said you killed 2 men, protecting children." 9 children. Apache, parents dead. White men came to take them, sell them. She shifted slightly, the rope creaking. "I used knife. Cut throat of first man. Second man shot me." She paused. "I killed him too." "How many children got away?" "All 9. "Good." Her eyes found his again. Something shifted there. Not softness, just recognition. "You were soldier, 4th Cavalry." Eli's blood went cold. "How do you know that? Camp Apache, 1879. You came at dawn, killed many people." "I was there." The world tilted. Eli gripped the porch post. "You remember." "I remember all who came to kill my people. I remember faces, yours. You shot woman running. She had no weapon. You shot her in back." Eli closed his eyes. The memory he'd tried to drown for 8 years came flooding back. The woman, the panic, the smoke and noise, and chaos, the way she'd fallen. "I was following orders." "And now you follow orders to cage me. Same man." He wanted to argue. Wanted to explain about command structure and military discipline and how you can't question orders in the middle of combat. Wanted to tell her about the nightmares, about Sarah's disappointment, about the whiskey he drank trying to forget. But she was right. Same man. Eli stood, walked to the house, stopped at the door. "I'll bring you food in the morning, water before that. I won't let you die in that cage." "Why, Wade pays you to keep me alive. You do it for money, not kindness." "Maybe." He looked back at her, at those burning eyes. "Or maybe I've got enough blood on my hands. Maybe I'm tired of adding to it." Nalnish hung there upside down, bound and caged. But when she spoke, her voice held all the power in the world. "Then prove it, soldier. Prove you are more than what you have done." Eli went inside, closed the door, leaned against it. On the table, Sarah's Bible lay open to Psalms. The page was worn from her reading it over and over in those final months. Eli picked it up, found the passage she'd marked. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." He closed the book, put it down. Outside, Nalnish hung in her cage, and Eli Carson sat in his empty house, and somewhere in the mathematics of sin and redemption, a calculation was being made. The sun would rise in 6 hours, Wade would return in 72, and Eli had until then to decide what kind of man he wanted to die as, because one thing was certain now, this wasn't going to end with everyone walking away. Tucson Federal Office, August 14, 1887. Marshal Samuel Bridger stood at the window watching rain that wouldn't come. The sky threatened. Lightning flickered on the horizon, illuminating the Catalina Mountains in brief, violent bursts. But no rain. Never any damn rain, just the promise of it hanging in the air like a lie. The telegram sat on his desk. He'd read it 14 times. The words hadn't changed. Wade spotted Silver Creek. Stop. Multiple witnesses. Stop moving cargo. Stop. Cargo. That's what they called human beings now. Cargo. Like furniture, like cattle. Bridger was 54 years old. He'd been a federal marshal for 22 years, and in that time, he'd learned that evil wasn't some abstract concept. It wore a suit, it smiled, it paid taxes and attended church and called human beings cargo. Clayton Wade had been moving cargo for 2 years now, 67 people that Bridger could confirm, Apache mostly, some Chinese, a few Mexican children, sold to circuses, brothels, mines, private collectors who wanted exotic servants, the kind of people who thought owning another human being made them sophisticated. Bridger had recovered 12, found 8 dead. 47 were still missing, and he knew in his gut that most of them were already gone. Not just missing, gone. The kind of gone that doesn't come back. Deputy Jacob So walked in without knocking. Running Bear. They called him, though he preferred Jacob, Navajo tracker, former Army scout, and the best man Bridger had ever worked with. He moved like smoke thought, like water, and never missed a trail. "We riding?" Jacob asked. "At dawn, Yumi, Miller, and Jones." "Jones is green. Jones needs to see how this works, how evil works." Bridger turned from the window. "Wade's in Silver Creek. Maybe already gone, but the trail's fresh. 2 days' ride if we push hard." Jacob nodded. He didn't ask questions he didn't need answers to. That was another thing Bridger appreciated. "How many this time?" Jacob asked. "Don't know. Witness said Wade had 4 men with him, moving something in a covered wagon. One wagon, one person, maybe 2. That's what I figure." Bridger sat down heavily. His back hurt. His knees hurt. Everything hurt these days. 14 months, Jacob. 14 months chasing this bastard across 7 states. How many more people have to disappear before we catch him? 1 less if we ride at dawn." Bridger smiled. Jacob had a way of cutting through the noise. "Get some sleep. We leave at first light." Jacob left as quietly as he'd arrived. Bridger sat alone in his office listening to thunder that never arrived, watching lightning that promised rain it wouldn't deliver. He thought about the 12 people he'd saved. Tried to remember their faces. Mostly he remembered their eyes, the hollow look of people who'd been treated like animals for so long they'd started to believe it. If Wade was in Silver Creek moving cargo, that meant someone was suffering right now, right this moment. While Bridger sat in his office comfortable and dry, someone was in a cage or a cellar or the back of a wagon, wondering if anyone was coming. Bridger stood, checked his Winchester, 50 rounds clean and oiled. He'd need everyone. 2 days to Silver Creek. He hoped whoever Wade had would last that long. Carson Ranch, August 15th, 1887, 2:17 a.m. Eli couldn't sleep. Hadn't really expected to. He lay on the bed he'd shared with Sarah, staring at ceiling boards he could count in the dark. 23. Always 23. He'd counted them 1,000 nights, and the number never changed. Outside, Nalnish hung in her cage. He could hear her breathing if he listened hard enough. Slow, steady. Like she was sleeping, though he knew she wasn't. Nobody slept hanging upside down for 96 hours. Eli got up, pulled on his pants, walked outside barefoot the way he used to patrol camp perimeters back in the war. Old habits. They never quite died, just waited underground like seeds. The moon was down. Stars filled the sky, so many you couldn't count them, each one a reminder of how small you were. How temporary. He walked to the cage. Nalnish's eyes were open. "You should sleep," she said. "Can't." Guilty conscience. Eli almost smiled. Almost. Something like that. He went to the well, drew more water. Came back with the cup and a piece of hardtack he'd soaked in goat milk to soften it. Prison food, cavalry food. But it was what he had. "You need to eat." She looked at him for a long moment, then opened her mouth. He fed her small pieces, gave her water between bites. It took 20 minutes. Neither of them spoke. When she'd eaten, Naelnish closed her eyes, not sleeping, just resting. Eli sat down on the ground back against the cage, wrong side. If she had a weapon, she could reach through, kill him easy. But she didn't have a weapon, and even if she did, he figured he deserved it. "Tell me about the children," Eli said. Her eyes opened. "Why, Tut? Because I need to know who I'm caging, what you did, why you did it." Silence. Then June, near Mexico border. I was taking 9 children south. Orphans. Parents killed by cavalry. By settlers, by disease. No family left. Her voice was flat. Factual. We traveled at night. Stayed hidden during day. White men hunt Apache children. Sell them to schools, to brothels, to anyone who pays. Eli's jaw tightened. He knew this was true. Had seen it. Never participated, but never stopped it either. We stopped in canyon to rest. Hidden place, safe, I thought. But 2 men found us, Garrett and Cole. Hunters. They had chains. Had wagon waiting 5 miles away. She shifted slightly. The rope creaked. Garrett grabbed little girl, 5 years old. Name was Desba. He pulled her hair, made her cry. Told her she would fetch good price. Young ones always do. Eli's hands curled into fists. I had knife. Old cavalry knife, actually, taken from dead soldier at Camp Apache. She paused. Maybe yours. Maybe. I cut Garrett's throat. Fast, clean. He died not knowing. Cole shot me. Here. She couldn't gesture, but Eli knew she meant her left shoulder. The old scar. Bullet went through. I did not fall. I fought. Broke his neck. Took his gun. And the children. I told them run. Hide. They knew how. Apache children learn young. They scattered like quail. 6 men came because of gunshots. Wade's men. They shot me 2 more times. Beat me. I killed 1 more before they knocked me down. Then cage. Then rope. Then you. Eli sat with that. 9 children. Orphans. She'd saved them all, killed 3 men doing it, and taken 4 bullets. And for that she was hanging upside down in a cage waiting to be sold to a circus. "The children," he said. "They made it. I do not know. I pray, but I do not know." Prayer. Funny thing to hear from a warrior. But then Eli supposed warriors needed God more than most people. They saw what humans did to each other, needed to believe something better was watching. "I'm sorry," Eli said, "for what you did not shoot me. You did not cage me. You just take money to watch." "I'm sorry anyway." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, not weak, just less stone. "At Camp Apache, 1879. You remember?" Eli's chest tightened. "I remember." "Tell me." "Why, because you need to speak it. Because guilt you swallow becomes poison." Eli leaned his head back against the iron bars, closed his eyes. Hadn't talked about Camp Apache in 8 years. Not to Sarah, not to himself. Just buried it deep and drank until the memory went fuzzy, but it never went away. Not really. "We rode out before dawn. 40 men. 4th Cavalry under Major Webb. We'd gotten word that Apache warriors had killed a supply wagon crew. 10 men. Butchered. Left for the vultures." Eli's voice was flat, dead. Webb said no prisoners. Said it was time to send a message. The stars turned overhead. The desert breathed. We hit the camp at first light. Most of them were still sleeping. 15 warriors, maybe. Rest were women, children, old people. They fought. God, they fought. But we had rifles, had numbers, had hate. You killed warriors. 3, all armed, all fighting. That part I can live with. That was war. Eli opened his eyes, stared at nothing. But there was a woman, running, carrying a child, little girl, maybe 3 years old. She was running for the rocks, trying to get the kid to safety. His throat closed up. He forced the words out. I shot her, in the back, saw she wasn't armed, saw the child, shot her anyway. She fell. The little girl fell with her. I watched them hit the ground and I just stood there. Didn't even check if they were dead, just reloaded and kept moving. Nalnish said nothing. Found out later she'd been hit by 2 bullets, mine and someone else's. Never knew whose, never wanted to know. We burned the camp, took the survivors to the reservation. 23 people out of 40, 17 dead. I killed 4, 3 warriors and 1 woman who never should have died. What was her name? Eli looked up. What? The woman. Did you learn her name? No. Her name was Chihini. She was my sister. The world stopped. Eli couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The stars overhead blurred and spun. Your sister. Yes, she had daughter. Nasha, 3 years old. Your bullet did not kill Chihini. Other soldiers' bullet did. But you shot her. I saw you. I was hiding in rocks. I saw everything. Eli wanted to vomit, wanted to scream, wanted to put his gun in his mouth and end this. The child, he managed. Nasha, did she? She lived. I took her, raised her. She is safe now, far from here. Thank God. Thank God for that much. I'm sorry. The words were useless, pathetic, but they were all he had. I'm so sorry. You were soldier, following orders. I understand war. That doesn't make it right. No, but you trying to die for me now, that is something. Eli looked at her. Really looked. This woman hanging upside down in a cage was the sister of someone he'd killed, and she wasn't screaming for his blood, wasn't demanding revenge, just stating facts. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I do not give it, but I do not kill you either. That is enough. The eastern sky was starting to lighten, gray creeping into black. Another day coming, whether they wanted it or not. Eli stood. His knees protested. Everything protested. I'm going to get you down, lower you a few feet. Blood's been pooling too long. You'll have brain damage if it goes much longer. Wade will know. Let him know. Eli worked the rope mechanism. It was clever. Pulley system ratchet lock probably designed by someone who'd built gallows. He released the lock, slowly lowering Nalnish 2 feet. She gasped. The pain of blood rushing back to her legs must have been incredible. But she didn't scream. When she was stable, Eli locked the mechanism. She hung there, still upside down, but not quite so severe. Her face was less purple, her breathing easier. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me. This doesn't change anything. You're still in a cage. I'm still the man who shot your sister. Yes, but now you're also a man who gave me water, fed me, lowered rope. People are more than one thing. Eli wanted to believe that. God, he wanted to believe that. The sun broke the horizon, and with it came the sound of horses. Too early. Wade wasn't supposed to return for another day and a half, but there they were. 4 riders coming fast from the west. Eli grabbed his rifle, levered around into the chamber. The riders came closer. As they crested the rise, Eli saw something that made his blood run cold. The man in front wasn't Wade. It was Major Marcus Webb, his former commanding officer. The man who'd given the order to kill everyone at Camp Apache. And Webb was smiling. They stopped 50 feet from the house. Webb dismounted slow, making a show of it. He was older now. 50 years old, maybe more. But he still moved like a soldier, still wore authority like a second skin. Carson, been a long time. Eli kept the rifle up. What do you want, Major? Heard you had yourself an Apache in a cage. Thought I'd come see. Thought maybe we could talk price. She's not for sale. Webb laughed. It was an ugly sound. Everything's for sale, Sergeant. You of all people should know that. Hell, you sold your soul cheap enough. $800 to babysit Wade's property. That's what $10 an hour cavalry privates make better money. How do you know about Wade? Wade and I are old friends. He told me about this one. Webb gestured at Nalnish. Said she was special, big, strong. Killed 3 men. That true? Nalnish stared at him with those burning eyes. Didn't respond. Webb walked closer. Eli tracked him with the rifle. "I'll give you $1,000 for her, cash, right now. You keep Wade's money, make 200 profit, and walk away clean." "No." "Why not? She's Apache. They killed plenty of our men. She probably killed some herself. This is justice." "This is slavery." Webb's face went hard. "You've gone soft, Carson. Time was you'd have pulled the trigger without thinking twice. What changed? You find religion. You find a conscience." Eli thought about Sarah, about her grave out back, about the promise he'd made. "Maybe I just got tired of being a monster." Monster. Webb tasted the word. "We were soldiers. We followed orders. We did our duty. That doesn't make us monsters. Doesn't make us men either." Webb's hand drifted toward his gun. Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. "You're making a mistake," Webb said. "Wade's not going to like this. And when Wade's not happy, people die. Then I'll die. You and the Apache both. Probably." They stared at each other. 8 years ago, Eli would have done whatever Webb ordered, would have shot Nalnish himself if commanded, but 8 years was a long time. Sarah had filled some of those years with light. Her death had filled the rest with darkness, and somewhere in that darkness, Eli had found something. Not redemption, not yet, just the edge of it, just the possibility. Webb remounted his horse. "You're a fool, Carson. Always were. That's why you never made officer." He wheeled his horse around, started to ride away, then stopped, turned back. "Wade will be here tomorrow, with more men. You won't be able to stop him, and when he takes that Apache, he'll probably kill you just for the inconvenience. But hey." Webb smiled. "At least you'll die with a conscience." He rode off. His men followed. They disappeared over the rise, heading back toward Silver Creek. Eli lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. "You should have shot him," Nalnish said. "Maybe. He will tell Wade. They will come with many men. You cannot fight them all." "I know." Eli walked to the cage, looked at the lock, heavy iron. He had the key. Wade had left it with him. Standard protocol. How do you guard something if you can't access it? "If I let you out," Eli said slowly, "you'll run." "Yes." "Wade will kill me when he finds out." "Yes." "I'll lose everything. The money, the ranch, probably my life." "Yes." Eli pulled the key from his pocket, held it in his palm. $800 of gold in the house. The deed to 300 acres of nothing. Sarah's grave, all of it. Or his soul. That was the choice, really. Keep the money, keep the land, live as a coward, or throw it all away and die as something better. Sarah's voice in his head clear as church bells. "Honor isn't what you did, Eli. It's what you do next." He put the key in the lock. Nalnish's eyes widened. "You will die," she said. "Been dying for 8 years. Might as well make it mean something." He turned the key. The lock clicked open. "When I get you down, you run. South toward Mexico. Don't stop. Don't look back. Find your people. Find those 9 children you saved. Live. And you, I'll slow Wade down, buy you time. You cannot fight them alone. Won't be alone. I'll have the ghosts of Camp Apache keeping me company." Eli opened the cage door. The sun climbed higher, and somewhere to the west, Clayton Wade was riding toward Carson Ranch with murder in his eyes. Carson Ranch, August 15, 1887. Eli worked the rope mechanism with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The pulley squealed, metal on metal. The sound cut through the morning air like a scream. Nalnish descended slowly, inch by painful inch, until her feet touched the wagon bed. She collapsed the moment the tension released, 22 hours upside down. Her legs buckled like broken branches. Eli caught her through the cage bars, taking her weight the best he could. 240 pounds of muscle and bone and sheer stubborn will. He felt his shoulder protest, felt his back threaten to give. "Easy," he said. "Easy. I've got you." She didn't speak. Couldn't speak. Her jaw was clenched so tight he could hear her teeth grinding. The pain of blood rushing back to her extremities must have been unbearable, like being stabbed with 1,000 hot needles all at once. Eli unlocked the cage, swung the door open, helped her out. She leaned on him, and he half-carried, half-dragged her toward the house. Every step was agony for both of them. Inside, he lowered her onto the bed, Sarah's bed. The sheets still smelled like her, even after 3 years, lavender and sage. Nailnish's eyes were closed, her breathing ragged. Eli went to the basin, grabbed the first aid kit he'd kept from his cavalry days, bandages, carbolic acid needle, and thread. The tools of frontier medicine. Crude but effective if you knew what you were doing. And Eli knew. 10 years in the cavalry taught you how to patch bullet holes, set broken bones, amputate frost-bitten toes. You learned or your friends died. Simple as that. He examined her ankles first. The rope had cut deep, leaving raw weeping wounds that circled her skin like brands. The flesh was purple, swollen. In another 12 hours, gangrene would have set in. She would have lost her feet. Eli cleaned the wounds with carbolic acid. Nailnish hissed, but didn't pull away, didn't cry out. He wrapped clean bandages tight enough to stop bleeding, but loose enough to allow circulation. Her wrists were worse. The chains had rubbed skin down to bone in places. He could see white beneath the red, could see where infection had already started to creep in. "This is going to hurt," he said. "Everything hurts." He cleaned those wounds too, wrapped them, moved on to her shoulder. The old bullet wound from June poorly healed, infected, festering. He could smell it, that sweet, rotten smell of flesh dying from the inside. Eli heated his knife in the lamp flame, waited until the metal glowed red. Nailnish watched him, understanding what came next. "You need to bite down on something." She shook her head. "Do it." He lanced the infection. Pus and blood drained out thick and yellow. The smell made his eyes water. Nailnish's back arched. Her hands gripped the bed frame hard enough to make the wood creak, but she didn't scream. "You're tougher than any soldier I ever knew," Eli said. "Apache women birth children in the desert and walk 20 miles the next day. This is nothing." Eli almost smiled. Almost. He packed the wound with clean cloth, bandaged it, gave her water. Hardtack soaked in goat milk. She ate like a starving animal, fast, efficient, no waste. "How long before you can ride?" he asked. She flexed her legs, tested her ankles, winced but didn't stop moving. 6 hours, maybe 8. "We don't have 8 hours. Then 6. Eli stood, went to the window, scanned the horizon. Nothing yet. But Webb had ridden out 2 hours ago, enough time to reach Silver Creek, find Wade, tell him everything. They'd be coming. Soon. "There's a cellar," Eli said. "Under the kitchen. Trapdoor hidden beneath the rug. You hide there. Rest. Heal. When you can move, you run. I'll hold them off. Buy you time." "You will die." "Probably." "Then I fight with you." "No." Eli turned to face her. "Those 9 children need you. Nasha needs you. You survive. You get back to them. That's your mission now." Nailnish studied him with those dark, burning eyes. "You are not the man who shot my sister. I'm exactly that man, just trying to be something else before I die." "Then do not die. Live. Be something else for many years." Not how this works. Apache proverb. Man who walks toward death finds it. Man who walks toward life sometimes lives despite the odds. Pretty words, but Wade's got 7 men and I've got 6 bullets. Then make the bullets count. The sun climbed higher. Heat began to build. By noon it would be over 100 degrees, the kind of heat that made you stupid, made you slow. Eli moved Nailnish to the cellar. It was cool down there, dark, safe. He gave her the Remington .44 from his saddlebag, gave her ammunition, water, the last of his food. "If I don't come back by nightfall, you leave. Don't wait, don't come looking, just go." She took the gun, checked the cylinder like she'd been born with one in her hand. "What is your wife's name, the one in the grave?" "Sarah." "I will remember her, and you. If you die today, I will tell my people about Elijah Carson, The white soldier who chose honor over gold. Just tell them I tried. He closed the trap door, covered it with the rug, moved the table over it for good measure. Then he went outside to wait. The ranch sat quiet under the climbing sun. Eli cleaned his Navy Colt, loaded his rifle, set out ammunition within easy reach, set traps at the approaches, simple cavalry tactics, trip wires, noisemakers, anything to give him warning. He had maybe 2 hours, maybe less. Eli sat on the porch, thought about Sarah, about the promise he'd made at her grave, about the man he'd been and the man he wanted to die as. The difference between those two men was everything. At 11:47 he heard horses, not from the west, from the north. Wrong direction. Eli grabbed his rifle, moved to cover behind the water trough. 6 riders crested the rise, moving fast, purpose in every movement. Wade was in front. Even at 200 yards, Eli recognized him. Black suit, straight back, face like carved granite. Victor Klein rode beside him, tall, lean, the kind of man who killed people for a living and slept fine afterward. Eli had known men like Klein in the war, efficient, soulless, dangerous. Behind them, Webb still in his cavalry blues despite retiring 5 years back. Then 3 more. Hank Riley, Dutch Keller, Rico Martinez, Wade's regular crew, no sign of the other men Webb had ridden out with. Either they'd been dismissed or they'd refused to come. Smart, if it was the latter. The group stopped 50 yards out. Far enough to avoid rifle fire, close enough to talk, professional spacing, military training showing through. Wade dismounted, walked forward alone, stopped at 30 yards. "Carson, I believe you have something that belongs to me." Eli stood, rifle in his hands but pointed at the ground. Neutral, non-threatening, standard negotiation posture. "She's gone, Wade. Left hours ago, probably in Mexico by now." Wade smiled. It was worse than anger would have been. "You're a terrible liar, Sergeant. Webb told me you were getting soft. Told me you might try something stupid, but I didn't believe him. Thought you were smarter than that." He gestured at the empty cage in the yard. "Guess I was wrong. You paid me to keep her alive. She was dying in that cage. I did what I had to do. You did what you wanted to do. Big difference." Wade pulled out a pistol. Colt Peacemaker, nickel-plated. Expensive. "Here's what happens now. You tell me where she is. I take her. You keep half the money, say 400. We part ways. No hard feelings. And if I don't, then I burn your ranch to ash with you inside it. Then I find her anyway. Apache woman that size, bleeding from the shoulder, weak from hanging. She won't get far. We'll have her by sunset." Eli did the math. 6 men. 1 of him. Nalnish couldn't fight yet, couldn't even walk properly. If Wade's men fanned out, searched the property, they'd find the cellar in minutes. Only 1 play left. "She's in the house." Eli lied. "Locked in the bedroom, too weak to move." Wade's eyes narrowed. "Show me." "Lower your weapons first. I'm not letting armed men into my house." "You're not in a position to make demands." "Then come get her yourself. But the first man who crosses my threshold armed, I shoot." Standoff. Wade studied him, trying to read the lie, trying to see the angle. "Victor," Wade said. "Check the house." Klein dismounted, started walking forward. His hand rested on his gun butt. Casual, ready. Eli raised the rifle. "I said no armed men." Klein stopped, looked at Wade. Wade nodded. Klein unbuckled his gun belt, set it on the ground, held his hands out showing empty palms, started walking again. 20 yards, 15, 10. Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that Klein would never disarm that easily, that something was coming. Klein reached the porch steps, and behind Eli inside the house, Nalnish screamed. Eli spun. The trapdoor. She was supposed to stay hidden, stay quiet. Klein moved, fast, faster than Eli expected. He pulled a knife from his boot, threw it. The blade tumbled through the air, spinning, catching sunlight. Eli dodged left. The knife missed his throat by inches. buried itself in the doorframe behind him. Then Klein was on him. 200 pounds of trained killer. They hit the porch hard. Eli's rifle clattered away. Klein's fist caught him in the jaw. Stars exploded. The taste of copper filled his mouth. Behind them, Wade's men charged, guns drawn, shouting. Eli brought his knee up, caught Klein in the gut. The bigger man grunted, rolled. Eli scrambled for his rifle, got his hands on it. Klein kicked it away. Inside the house, Nalnish screamed again. Not pain, rage, a gunshot. From inside. Wade's men were at the porch now. Eli saw Dutch Keller raising his pistol, saw the barrel line up with his face, saw death coming. He grabbed Klein, used him as a shield. Dutch's shot went wide. Eli shoved Klein at Dutch. Both men went down in a tangle of limbs. Eli dove for the house, made it through the door, slammed it shut, threw the bolt. The table was overturned, the rug pulled back, the trapdoor open. And Nalnish stood in the center of the room, blood on her hands. Wade's seventh man, the one Eli hadn't seen, lay at her feet, throat cut, eyes staring at nothing. "He came through the back window," she said. "I heard him. Waited." Bullets punched through the door. Wood splintered. Eli grabbed Nalnish, pulled her down. "Cellar, now. There's a tunnel. Leads to the barn." "What tunnel?" "Built it during the war, in case Apache attacked. Ironic, right?" More bullets. The window shattered. Glass rained down. They crawled to the trapdoor, dropped into darkness. Eli pulled the door shut above them, heard boots on the porch, heard Wade shouting orders. The tunnel was narrow. Dirt walls, timber supports 4 feet high. They crawled on hands and knees. Nalnish moved slow, pain in every movement, but she moved. Behind them the sound of the front door breaking, men flooding into the house. "Find them, burn everything if you have to." Eli and Nalnish reached the barn, came up through another trapdoor, hidden in an empty stall. 2 horses waited. Eli's last 2. He'd saddled them hours ago, just in case. "Can you ride?" "I can do anything if the alternative is a cage." Thunder shifted beneath Eli. His last good horse, 12 years old, had carried him through 3 territories, now carrying him one last time. The old mare Nalnish rode had been borrowed from Tucker's abandoned spread. Not as strong, but it would do. They kicked open the barn door. Sarah's grave was out there. Her Bible, her shawl, everything. Gone. "Red Rock Canyon," Eli said, 3 miles east. "We can lose them in the rocks." They rode, hard, fast. Behind them shouts, then gunfire. Bullets kicked up dust. Eli leaned low over his horse's neck, felt the animal's muscles bunch and stretch, felt the rhythm of hooves on hard earth. Nalnish rode beside him, back straight despite the pain, face set, eyes forward. They hit the canyon entrance at full gallop. The walls rose up on either side. Red sandstone, 200 feet high, narrow, perfect for an ambush if you knew the terrain. And Eli knew it. Had fought here, had killed here. This was Camp Apache, the place where everything started. Wade's men wouldn't be far behind. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe less. "We need to find cover," Nalnish said. "High ground, defensible position." Eli pointed to a cluster of boulders 50 yards ahead. Natural fortification, good sight lines, limited approaches. They dismounted, led the horses into cover, checked their weapons. Eli had his Navy Colt, 6 rounds, his rifle. 16 rounds, 1 spare cylinder. Another 6, 28 bullets against 7 men. Not good odds, but better than none. Nalnish had the Remington. 6 rounds, no spare ammunition. She looked at Eli, really looked. Her face was bruised, swollen. But those eyes, God, those eyes still burned. "This is where you killed my sister." "Yes." "Do you know which rock she fell behind?" Eli pointed. 20 yards south, a flat stone shaped like a breaking wave. "There." Nalnish walked to it, stood there for a moment, silent. Her lips moved, prayer maybe, or goodbye. When she came back, her face was harder, colder. "We fight here, where she died. where you became a killer, where you become something else. If we make it. If. The sound of horses echoed through the canyon, getting closer. Eli checked his rifle one last time, thought about Sarah, about the life he could have lived, about the man he'd been and the man he was about to die as. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For making this mean something." Nalnish nodded once, took position behind a boulder, raised her pistol. Wade's voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Carson, you're trapped. Come out, and we'll make it quick." Eli didn't answer, just waited. Watched the canyon entrance. 7 men on horses appeared, silhouettes against the bright sky beyond. Wade, Klein, Webb, Dutch, Hank, Rico, and one more, smaller, younger. They spread out, professional, taking position. Webb's voice. "This is your last chance, Sergeant. Surrender." Eli thought about Camp Apache, about the orders he'd followed, about the woman he'd shot. Thought about the cage, about $800 in gold, about the choice he'd made. He stood up, rifle to shoulder. "Go to hell, Major," and opened fire. The battle for Red Rock Canyon had begun. Silver Creek, Arizona Territory, 3:14 p.m. Same day. Marshal Samuel Bridger's horse was half dead by the time they reached Silver Creek. Foam flew from its mouth. Its flanks heaved like bellows, but it had carried him 40 miles in 6 hours, and that was what mattered. Sheriff Dan Cooper stood outside his office, hand shading his eyes against the afternoon sun. He was 60 years old, fat, lazy, the kind of lawman who kept the peace by looking the other way. Bridger dismounted. His deputies did the same: Jacob So, William Miller, Thomas Jones. "Sheriff," Bridger said, "we're looking for Clayton Wade." Cooper's face went pale. "You just missed him, Marshal. Rode out this morning with 6 men, maybe 7, armed heavy. Looked like they were going to war." "Where?" "East, toward Red Rock Canyon. Heard them mention Carson Ranch." Jacob was already moving, reading the ground like a book. He knelt, touched the dirt, stood. "2 separate groups," he said. "Wade's men, 7 horses fresh this morning. But 2 more, older tracks, from earlier, heading same direction." "Who else is out there?" Bridger asked Cooper. "Elijah Carson. Owns a failing ranch 12 miles out. Former cavalry. Good man mostly. Keeps to himself." "Wade have business with him." Cooper shifted his weight, looked away. Classic tell. "Sheriff," Bridger said quietly, "people are dying. Help me or get out of the way. Heard Wade paid Carson to watch something. Don't know what. Don't want to know. But Carson's desperate. Bank's foreclosing next week. Man in that position, he might take money for things he shouldn't." Bridger's gut twisted. Wade paid a desperate man to guard cargo. Now Wade was riding with 7 men to Carson's ranch. That meant one of 2 things. Either the cargo escaped, or Carson grew a conscience. Neither option ended well. "How far to Red Rock Canyon?" "Hour's ride, maybe less if you push." Bridger was already mounting his horse. The animal protested, too tired, too spent. But it obeyed. "Jacob, what are we looking at if Wade catches them in that canyon?" Jacob's face was grim. "Kill box, 1 entrance, high walls, no escape. If Wade gets them trapped in there, they're dead. Then we ride. Now." They rode, east, toward Red Rock Canyon, toward the sound of distant gunfire that had just begun to echo across the desert. Red Rock Canyon, August 15th, 1887. Eli's first shot took Hank Riley in the shoulder. The man spun off his horse like a rag doll, hit the ground hard, didn't get up. His horse bolted. The crack of the rifle echoed through the canyon, bouncing off stone walls, multiplying into a dozen phantom shots. Wade's men scattered. Professional, quick. They'd been under fire before. Eli worked the lever action, ejected the brass, chambered another round, fired, missed. Dutch Keller was already behind cover, disappearing into the rocks like smoke. Nalnish fired the Remington. The boom was deeper, heavier. Rico Martinez's horse screamed. went down. Rico rolled clear, crawling for the boulder field on the south wall. Then return fire came, a storm of it. Bullets chewed into the rocks around Eli and Nalnish. Stone fragments exploded. Dust filled the air. The canyon became a hell of noise and lead and desperation. Eli dropped behind his boulder. Counted shots. 7, 8, 9. They were throwing ammunition at shadows, trying to pin him down while they repositioned. Smart. But it wouldn't work. Not here. This was Eli's ground. He'd fought here before, knew every stone, every angle, every place where shadow met light. He rolled left, came up 15 feet from where he'd been, fired, saw Webb duck. The major's hat flew off. Close. Not close enough. Nalnish moved too, fluid despite her injuries. She'd shifted position, flanking right, using the terrain like she'd been born to it, which she had. Apache warriors knew this land the way sailors knew the sea. The gunfire stopped. Sudden. Total. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Eli's ears rang. His shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. He could taste gun smoke. Bitter. Sharp. Wade's voice echoed through the canyon. "Carson, you killed one of mine that changes things." Eli didn't answer. Didn't waste breath. He was counting ammunition in his head. Rifle 13 rounds left. Pistol 6. 1 spare cylinder, 6 more. 25 bullets. 6 men still moving out there. Maybe 7 if Hank was still alive. Nalnish caught his eye. Held up 5 fingers. 5 rounds left in the Remington. No spare ammunition. 30 total between them. Not enough. Not nearly enough. "Eli Carson," Webb's voice now. Harder. Colder. "You remember Fort Bowie, 1878. You and I held that supply depot against 40 Apache for 3 days. Eli remembered. 3 days of hell. No water. No food. Just bullets and hate, and the certainty that they were all going to die. But they hadn't died. The relief column had come. No relief was coming now. "You were a good soldier once," Webb continued. "The best I ever commanded. Don't throw that away for some Apache savage." Nalnish's face went hard as stone. But she said nothing. Just checked her cylinder. Waiting. Eli cupped his hands around his mouth. "She's not a savage, Major. She's a woman who saved 9 children. That makes her better than both of us." Silence. Then laughter. Wade's laughter. Ugly, mean, touching, really. "But it doesn't change the math, Carson. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and when the sun goes down, we'll come for you in the dark, the sun." Eli looked west. The orb hung maybe 3 hours above the horizon, 3 hours of daylight left. Then darkness, then death, unless. He looked at the canyon, really looked. The walls rose 200 feet, sheer in most places, but not everywhere. There were cracks, handholds, places where erosion had carved weakness into ancient stone. If they could climb, get to high ground, they'd have the advantage, could hold Wade off. Maybe until Bridger arrived, if Bridger was coming. If he wasn't, they'd die on that cliff face, but they'd die here anyway. At least climbing gave them a chance. Eli turned to Nalnish, pointed up. She followed his gesture, studied the wall. Her eyes traced a path that Eli couldn't see. Apache eyes, trained from childhood to read terrain the way white men read books. She nodded once. It could be done, but not yet. Not with 6 armed men watching every move. They had to thin the numbers first. Eli settled in, made himself comfortable. This was going to be a long afternoon. The sun crawled across the sky. Heat built. The canyon became an oven. Eli could feel sweat soaking his shirt, could feel his canteen getting lighter with every sip. Water. They had maybe 2 hours of water left. Maybe less in this heat. Wade knew it too. That's why he was waiting. Time was his ally. Thirst would do his work for him. At 5:15, Dutch Keller made his move. Eli saw the motion, peripheral vision, 50 yards south. Dutch was trying to flank them, creeping through the boulders, slow, careful, professional. Eli tracked him, waited. Let him get closer, 40 yards, 30, 25. Dutch raised his head, checking sight lines, making sure the path was clear. Eli fired. The bullet took Dutch in the chest, center mass. The man's eyes went wide. He dropped his rifle, fell backward, didn't move again. Dutch, Rico's voice, anguished, angry. Then Rico was up, charging, screaming, firing his pistol wild. 6 shots, none of them close. Just rage and grief turned into lead. Nalnish stood, calm, aimed, fired once. Rico's charge ended. He crumpled, fell, lay still, 4 left, Wade, Klein, Webb, Hank. If he was still breathing. Eli had 11 rounds in the rifle, 6 in the pistol, 6 in the spare cylinder, 23 bullets. Nalnish had 3. The odds were getting better. Still bad, but better. Wade's voice cut through the canyon again. Different now, not amused anymore, not confident, angry. You just killed 2 more of my men. Carson, Victor, Webb, burned them out. Dynamite. They had dynamite. Eli had seen it in Wade's saddlebags earlier, maybe 20 sticks, enough to bring down half this canyon. He grabbed Nalnish, pulled her deeper into the rocks, found a crevice, narrow, deep, old water erosion that cut 10 feet into the stone. They squeezed inside, the walls pressed close, claustrophobic, but safe. The explosion came 30 seconds later. The world turned white, then red, then black. Sound became something physical, something that could kill you. The shockwave hit like a giant's fist. Eli felt his organs compress, felt his lungs empty, felt his brain slam against the inside of his skull. Rock rained down. Boulders the size of wagons tumbled past the crevice entrance. Dust filled everything. Eli couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched whine that might have been his ears dying. He grabbed Nalnish's hand, held tight, anchor in chaos. The dust began to settle. Slowly, like snow that wouldn't melt. Eli crawled out of the crevice. The world had changed. The boulder field where they'd taken cover was gone, blown apart, scattered. The landscape looked like God had taken a hammer to it, but they were alive. Eli checked himself, ears bleeding, nose bleeding, but nothing broken, nothing that wouldn't heal. Nalnish emerged behind him. Blood ran from her ears too. Her face was gray with dust, but her eyes, those eyes still burned. "We climb," she said. Her voice sounded far away. Underwater. Now, before they see. The dust was still thick. Visibility maybe 20 feet. Perfect cover. They moved. Fast. Quiet. Reached the canyon wall. Started up. The stone was hot under Eli's hands. Burned his palms. But he climbed. Found handholds, footholds. Pulled himself up inch by inch. Nalnish climbed beside him. Injured. Exhausted. But she climbed like a mountain goat. Natural. Effortless. This was Apache country. Her country. 30 feet up, 50, 70. Below the dust began to clear. Eli heard voices, shouting. Wade's men realizing their targets had disappeared. Where'd they go? Check the rocks. They're gone. How the hell are they gone? 100 feet. The muscles in Eli's arms screamed. His fingers bled. But he kept climbing. 120, 140. They're up high. They're climbing. Gunfire. Bullets struck the stone around Eli's head. He flattened against the wall, kept moving, couldn't stop. Stopping meant falling. Nalnish reached a ledge, 15 feet long, 3 feet wide. She pulled herself up, turned, extended her hand. Eli grabbed it. She hauled him up, strength that shouldn't exist in a body so damaged, but existed anyway. They collapsed on the ledge, breathing hard. The climb had taken everything. Below, Wade's men looked like toys, small, distant. They were shouting, pointing. But the angle was wrong. They couldn't get a clear shot. Eli had the high ground now. He checked his rifle. Dusty but functional. 11 rounds. He took aim, fired. The bullet kicked up dust near Wade's feet. The man scrambled for cover. Eli fired again and again, not trying to kill, just keeping them pinned, keeping them scared. 7 rounds left. The sun touched the western ridge. Maybe an hour of light remained. Eli turned to Nalnish. "We hold here until dark. Then we move. Where? There's a cave, half-mile north, big enough for 2, defendable. We make it there, we can survive the night. And tomorrow Bridger comes, or he doesn't. Either way, we'll know." Nalnish looked at him, really looked. Her face was a mask of blood and dust and exhaustion. But those eyes. "Tell me about your wife," she said. The question caught Eli off guard. "Why?" "Because if we die tonight, I want to know what kind of man fights beside me, who he loved, who he lost." Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then Sarah. Her name was Sarah. Met her in 1881, right after I left the cavalry. She was a teacher, taught at the mission school in Silver Creek. He paused. The memories hurt, like touching an old wound that never healed. She was kind, patient, saw something in me worth saving. Don't know what. I was a drunk, a killer. Had nightmares every night. Woke up screaming. But she stayed. She loved you. She tried to. Married me in 1882. We had 3 good years. Then she got sick. Tuberculosis, coughing, fever, wasting away. His voice cracked. He pushed through it. Doctor in Santa Fe could have helped. Cost $50. I had 47. Had spent the other 3 on whiskey the week before. By the time I borrowed the money, she was too far gone. She died. In our bed, holding my hand, telling me it wasn't my fault, but it was. I killed her same as if I'd put a gun to her head. Nalnish was quiet. Then, "My sister, Chihini. She died in this canyon 8 years ago. Your bullet. Another soldier's bullet. She fell over there." She pointed to a spot below. Nasha, her daughter, was 3 years old. Watched her mother die. Screamed for hours. Eli closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." "I know. But sorry does not bring back the dead. Only action matters. Only what we do next." "What did you do next?" "I took Nasha." Nalnish smiled. Small, sad. "She is 16 now. Beautiful. Fierce. She will have children someday. And she will tell them about her mother. About how she died protecting her people. Will she tell them about me? That depends on whether you live. Whether you prove that white men can change." Below night was falling. The canyon filled with shadows. Stars began to appear. Brilliant. Infinite. Eli heard movement. Rocks sliding. Someone climbing. He raised his rifle, peered over the ledge. Victor Klein, climbing. Fast. Experienced. 20 feet below and closing. Eli aimed. Fired. Missed. Klein dodged. Kept climbing. 15 feet 10. Nalnish grabbed a rock. Basketball-sized. Heavy. She lifted it. Waited. Klein's head appeared over the ledge. She dropped the rock. It caught him square in the face. The sound was terrible. Wet. Final. Klein's hands released. He fell. Tumbled. Bounced off outcroppings. Hit the canyon floor 140 feet below. Didn't move. 3 left. Wade, Webb, maybe Hank. "We move now," Eli said. While they're regrouping, they climbed higher, found a crack in the wall, squeezed through, emerged on the other side into a different section of canyon. Darker. Narrower. The cave was close now. Behind them voices. Wade and Webb searching, calling, getting farther away. Eli and Nalnish reached the cave. It was small, maybe 8 feet deep, 6 wide. But the entrance was narrow, defensible. One man could hold it against a dozen. They collapsed inside. Eli checked his ammunition. 6 rounds in the rifle, 6 in the pistol, 6 in the spare cylinder, 18 total. Nalnish had 2 bullets left, 20 rounds between them. Eli divided his remaining water, half for each, maybe 6 swallows, enough to last until morning, maybe. "You should have left me in that cage," Nalnish said. "Probably. You would still have your ranch, your money, Your life. I'd have my cowardice too. That was getting heavy to carry. She smiled. Actually smiled. First time Eli had seen it. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less like a warrior, more like a woman who'd been forced to become one. Apache have a word, goyathlai. It means one who yawns. That was Geronimo's name before he became a warrior, before the Mexicans killed his family, before he chose to fight. What's your point? We all become what we must, but we also become what we choose. You chose this. You chose to stand. That matters. Tell that to Wade when he kills us, if he kills us. And even if he does, we die standing. That is worth something. Outside, full darkness had fallen. The canyon was black as a tomb. Eli could hear movement, careful, deliberate. Wade's men searching, getting closer. He gripped his rifle, waited. If they found the cave, there would be one last fight, and Eli Carson intended to make it count. Silver Creek, 6:47 p.m. Same day, Marshal Bridger's horse finally died 3 miles from Red Rock Canyon. Just stopped, stood there shaking, then collapsed. The animal had given everything. Heart literally burst from the strain. Bridger hit the ground running. Didn't look back. Didn't have time to mourn. Deputy Miller's horse went down a mile later. Same thing. Too much, too fast, too far. Jacob and Jones were still mounted. Barely. Their horses stumbled, fought for every step. Leave them, Bridger ordered. We run the rest. They ran. 4 men, middle-aged, exhausted, running through desert night toward the sound of distant gunfire that had stopped an hour ago, which meant one of 2 things. Everyone was dead, or everyone was hiding. Bridger prayed for the latter. They reached the canyon entrance at 7:30, full dark, stars bright, moon rising. Jacob knelt, read the ground by moonlight. His fingers traced patterns invisible to white eyes. Big fight. Multiple shooters, explosion, bodies. He pointed. 2, maybe 3. Hard to tell in the dark. Wade's men or Carson's? Don't know, but there's blood on the rocks. Recent. Still wet. What about survivors? Jacob stood, looked into the canyon, tilted his head, listening to something Bridger couldn't hear. Someone's alive, moving, searching. He paused. And someone's hiding, waiting. How many? Can't tell, but less than came in, a lot less. Bridger checked his Winchester. 50 rounds. Miller and Jones did the same. Jacob preferred his rifle. Lighter, faster, better for close work. We go in quiet, Bridger said. No shots unless necessary. We find Wade's men first. Identify. Then we find Carson. They moved into the canyon, single file. Jacob leading. Reading the darkness like a book written in shadows. Inside the canyon was a maze. Boulders, cliff faces, 1,000 places to hide, 1,000 places to die. Bridger saw the first body at the mouth. Hank Riley, shot in the shoulder, bled out. The second was 50 yards in. Dutch Keller, chest shot, clean kill. The third, Rico Martinez, same. 3 down, Miller whispered. How many came in? 7, Bridger said. Maybe 8. Ahead voices, low, tense. Wade's voice, then Webb's. Bridger held up a fist. Everyone stopped. He pointed. Jacob nodded, moved forward, silent as death itself. They crept closer, 30 yards, 20. Bridger could see them now, Wade, Webb, standing in a clearing, arguing. He's up there somewhere, in those caves. We wait until morning, flush him out. Morning's too late, Carson knows this canyon. He'll pick us off one by one. Then what do you suggest, Major? We burn him out? Fire smoke, make him run? And if he runs south straight to Mexico, then we track him? With what men? Klein's dead, Dutch and Rico are dead, Hank's dead. It's just you and me left. Silence, heavy, defeated. Wade's voice, quieter now. Then we wait, all night if we have to. He'll have to come down eventually. No water up there, no food. He comes down or he dies. Bridger stepped out of the shadows, Winchester leveled. "Federal Marshal, both of you hands where I can see them." Wade spun, went for his gun. Miller fired. Not to kill, to wound. The bullet took Wade in the leg. The man screamed, fell. Webb froze, his hand near his pistol, but not touching. Calculating. Deciding. "Don't," Bridger said. "I've ridden 40 miles to catch you. I'm tired. I'm angry. And I really want an excuse." Webb's hand moved away from his gun. Slow. Deliberate. "Marshal, you're making a mistake. This man is a criminal. He released federal property." "Federal property? You mean a human being? An Apache who killed 2 white men, 2 slave hunters who were stealing children. I read the reports. Self-defense." Wade groaned on the ground. Blood pooled around his leg. Not arterial. He'd live. "Unfortunately," Jacobs, Bridger said. "Find Carson. Tell him it's over. Tell him he's safe." Jacob melted into the darkness. Gone. Bridger kept his rifle on Webb and Wade. Miller and Jones moved in, cuffed them both. "Clayton Wade, Marcus Webb, you're both under arrest. Trafficking, attempted murder, conspiracy, and about a dozen other charges I'll think of on the ride back." Wade spat blood. "You got no proof." "I got 3 dead bodies. I got a cage in Carson's yard. I got witness testimony from Carson and the woman you tried to sell." Bridger smiled. Cold. Hard. "I got everything I need." 30 minutes later, Jacob returned, Eli and Nalnish with him. They looked like ghosts, covered in dust and blood and exhaustion, but alive. Eli's eyes found Wade, found Webb. Something passed across his face. Not satisfaction, not joy, just closure. "It's done," Bridger said. Eli nodded. Then his legs gave out. He sat down hard, put his head in his hands. Nalnish stood over him, placed her hand on his shoulder, gentle, protective. "You lived," she said. "You walked toward life, and life let you." Eli looked up at her. At this woman he'd caged and freed. This warrior who'd forgiven him for killing her sister. This force of nature wrapped in damaged flesh. "Thank you," he said. "For what? For making me remember what honor feels like." She nodded. No more words necessary. The stars turned overhead. The canyon held its breath. And Elijah Carson, for the first time in 8 years, felt like a man worth saving. Red Rock Canyon, August 15th, 1887. The campfire cast dancing shadows on the canyon walls. Orange light flickered across faces drawn tight with exhaustion. Eli sat with his back against a boulder, letting Deputy Miller wrap his shoulder. The bullet had gone clean through. Messy, painful, but survivable. Miller worked with the efficiency of a man who'd patched plenty of wounds. Cavalry training. You learned field medicine or you watched your friends die. Simple as that. "You're lucky," Miller said. "Another inch to the right, it would have hit the artery. You'd have bled out before we got here." Lucky. Eli almost laughed. He'd been shot twice, lost his ranch, burned every bridge he had left. But he was alive, and Wade was in chains. Maybe that was lucky after all. Across the fire, Nalnish sat alone. Jacob had checked her wounds, cleaned them, re-bandaged what Eli had already wrapped. She hadn't complained, hadn't made a sound, just sat there with that infinite patience that came from a lifetime of surviving impossible things. Wade and Webb were 20 feet away, hands cuffed behind their backs, ankles hobbled. Wade's leg wound had been bandaged. He'd lived to stand trial, lived to see the inside of a federal prison. Webb just stared at the fire. His face was empty, all that pride, all that certainty, gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who'd finally run out of road. Marshal Bridger sat near the prisoners. His Winchester rested across his knees. He hadn't put it down since they'd found Eli and Nalnish. Probably wouldn't until Wade was behind bars. "Tell me everything," Bridger said. His voice was quiet, conversational, but there was steel underneath. "Start At the beginning. Eli told it, all of it. Wade's offer, the $800, the cage. Nailnish hanging upside down for 22 hours. The decision to free her. Webb's visit, the chase, the siege. He left nothing out, didn't try to make himself look better, just gave the facts. Raw, unvarnished. When he finished, Bridger was quiet for a long time. The fire popped. Sparks drifted upward, disappeared into darkness. "You took money to guard a human being in a cage," Bridger said finally. "Yes, sir. You knew it was wrong. Yes, sir. But you did it anyway." "I needed the money, my ranch, my debt. I convinced myself it was just business, that I was just following orders." Eli looked at his hands, covered in blood and dirt and gun smoke. "I was good at that, following orders, even when the orders were evil." "What changed?" Eli glanced at Nailnish. She was watching him, those dark eyes reflecting firelight. "She did. She made me look at myself, really look, and I didn't like what I saw. So you freed her." "So I tried to be something better than what I'd been." Bridger nodded slowly. He'd seen a lot in 22 years as a marshal, seen good men do bad things, seen bad men do good things. The world wasn't simple. People weren't simple. "Clayton Wade," Bridger said louder now, addressing the prisoner, "you're charged with trafficking in human beings. 67 counts across 5 territories. Attempted murder of Elijah Carson. Conspiracy. Bribery. And anything else I can think of on the ride back to Tucson." Wade smiled. Even now, even in chains. He smiled. "You got nothing, Marshal. Hearsay. The word of a drunk rancher and a savage who killed white men. No judge will convict me. I got 3 dead men in this canyon who worked for you. I got a cage. I got the woman you were trying to sell. I got financial records from your operation that my deputies found in Silver Creek." Bridger leaned forward. "And I got 14 months of investigation. Witnesses across 7 states. Bank records. Shipping manifests. Names. Dates. Everything." Wade's smile faded. "You've been careful," Bridger continued, "but not careful enough. You left a trail, and I followed it, all the way here, all the way to you." Silence, heavy, final. Webb spoke for the first time since being captured. His voice was hollow. "I was just trying to make money. After the war, after the cavalry cut my pension, I had nothing. Wade offered me work. Good money. I didn't ask questions." "You were selling people," Bridger said. "That's not work. That's slavery." "They were Apache, enemy combatants. We were at war." "The war ended 6 years ago when Geronimo surrendered. These weren't soldiers. They were women, children. You knew that. You did it anyway." Webb had no answer, just stared at the fire. Deputy Jones approached. He'd been searching the canyon, checking for other survivors, other bodies. He shook his head. Nothing. "Klein's dead," Jones reported. "Fell from the cliff. Dutch Keller, Rico Martinez, Hank Riley, all dead from gunshot wounds. That's everyone." 7 men had ridden into this canyon. 3 were dead. 2 were prisoners. 2 had never existed. Wade had bluffed about his numbers, trying to make Eli and Nailnish think they were more outnumbered than they were. It had almost worked. Bridger stood, walked over to Nailnish. She looked up, wary. A lifetime of bad experiences with white lawmen had taught her caution. "Ma'am," Bridger said, "I need your testimony about the 2 men you killed, Garrett and Cole, about why you killed them." "They were stealing children to sell. I stopped them." "How many children?" 9. "You saved 9 children from being sold into slavery." "Yes, and in the process you killed 2 men who were actively committing a federal crime." Nailnish studied him, trying to read if this was a trap. If the law was about to pivot, decide that saving Apache children wasn't worth killing white men. "That's self-defense," Bridger said. "Defense of others. Under federal law you're protected. You won't be charged." Something shifted in Nailnish's face. Not relief exactly, just a slight loosening of tension that had been coiled tight for months. "The 9 children," Bridger continued. "Where are they now?" Safe. With family, far from here. Can you give me names? Locations I'll need to verify. Make sure they're accounted for, protected. Nalnish looked at Eli. He nodded. She could trust Bridger, as much as any Apache could trust any white lawman, which wasn't much, but it was something. She gave him names, approximate locations, enough to follow up, enough to make sure those children stayed safe. When she finished, Bridger pulled out a small notebook, wrote it all down, careful, precise. One more thing, he said. Where will you go after this? South, to my people, near the border. You'll be safe there, safer than here. Bridger nodded. He understood. The frontier was changing. Geronimo's surrender had been the end of something. The Apache wars were over. But the killing hadn't stopped. It had just become quieter, more insidious. Men like Wade, men like Webb, they didn't fight with honor. They just bought and sold and destroyed. You're free to go, Bridger said. Any time. No charges. No warrants. Just go. Live. Nalnish stood, tested her weight on damaged ankles. They held. Barely. But they held. She walked to the edge of the firelight, looked south, toward Mexico, toward freedom. Then she turned back, looked at Eli. You will come. The question hung in the air. Everyone heard it. Everyone waited. Eli thought about it, really thought. He could go south, leave everything behind, start over in a place where nobody knew his name, knew his history, knew what he'd done at Camp Apache. But that would be running again, and he'd been running for 8 years. No, he said quietly, I can't. Why? Because I need to face what I did. Stand trial for my choices, answer for helping Wade, even if it was only for a day, even if I changed my mind. I still took the money, still put you in danger. You freed me, after I caged you. That doesn't erase the first part, just adds to it. Nalnish was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked back, sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Then I stay too, until your trial. I will testify, tell them what you did, both the bad and the good. You don't have to do that. I know, but I do it anyway, because you stood for me when you did not have to. Now I stand for you. Eli felt something break loose in his chest, some tight knot that had been choking him for years, not gone, not healed, but loosened. Thank you, he managed. Do not thank me yet. We do not know what the judge will say. True. Federal law was complicated. Eli had taken money to guard an illegally detained person. That was conspiracy, aiding and abetting, even if he'd ultimately freed her, even if he'd fought Wade's men. The law didn't always account for redemption. He could go to prison, 5 years, 10, maybe more, or he could hang. Miller finished bandaging Eli's shoulder, gave him water, hardtack, jerky, prison rations. But after 3 days of chaos, it tasted like a feast. The night deepened. Temperature dropped. Desert nights were like that. Furnace at noon. Icebox at midnight. Deputy Jones built up the fire. Everyone huddled close. Eli found himself sitting between Nalnish and Miller. 2 people who should have been enemies, who'd become something else. Not quite friends, but allies. Survivors. Tell me about Camp Apache, Nalnish said quietly, so quiet only Eli could hear. Not the killing, the place. What it looked like. Why? Because my sister died there. I want to know what she saw last. What the world looked like in her final moments. Eli closed his eyes, remembered. It was dawn. The sky was pink, orange. The most beautiful sunrise I'd ever seen. There were saguaro cacti on the ridge. Must have been 40 feet tall, ancient, like sentinels watching over everything. He paused. The memory was painful. But Nalnish deserved the truth. The camp was in a valley, protected on 3 sides by rocks. Your people had chosen well. Good water, good sight lines, good place to live. His voice roughened. Good place to die, I guess. Was there a tree, big one, near the center? Yes, cottonwood, maybe 60 years old, thick trunk, good shade. Chihini loved that tree, used to sit under it with Nasha, tell her stories, sing songs. Nalnish's voice was steady, factual, but Eli heard the pain underneath. She is buried there, under that tree. I went back after, buried her myself. Eli didn't know what to say. Sorry was too small, too useless. So he said nothing, just sat there, bearing witness to her grief. "Do you dream about it?" she asked. "Camp Apache. Every night for 8 years. What do you dream? That I'm back there, that I see her running, that I have a choice. And every night in the dream I make the right choice. I don't shoot, I let her go. She lives." He opened his eyes. "Then I wake up. And remember, that's not what happened. Dreams are not truth. They are wishes wearing the mask of memory. Apache wisdom, my wisdom, learned from living with too many ghosts." They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Another answered. The desert was never truly quiet, just waiting. "What will you do?" Nalnish asked. "After the trial, if you are free, rebuild. The ranch is gone, burned, but the land is still there. I can start over. Build something new, something that isn't soaked in whiskey and regret. Alone, I've been alone since Sarah died. I'm used to it. Being alone and being lonely are different things. Maybe, but lonely is safer. Can't disappoint anyone if there's no one to disappoint. Can't live either." Eli looked at her, this woman who'd been caged, tortured, who'd lost her sister to his bullet, who'd saved 9 children and killed 3 men and climbed a cliff with damaged ankles because the alternative was submission. "You're a hell of a lot tougher than me," he said. "No, just tougher longer. You are learning. That is enough." Across the fire, Wade was watching them. His face was twisted with something ugly. Hate, jealousy, the impotent rage of a man who'd lost everything. "You think you're better than me, Carson," Wade called out. "You're not. You took my money, you caged her. You're just like me, just too weak to admit it." Eli met his eyes, held his gaze. "You're right. I am like you. Was like you. That's what scares me. That's why I had to change. Because I saw where that road ended, and I didn't want to die there." "Noble, real noble. But you'll still hang. The law doesn't care about your feelings, doesn't care that you had a change of heart. You broke the law, you'll pay." "Maybe. But I'll pay clean. That's more than you can say." Wade spat, turned away. No more words, just hate. The night wore on. One by one, people drifted toward sleep. Miller took first watch. Jones, second. Jacob would take third. Bridger didn't sleep, just sat there, watching, making sure Wade didn't somehow escape, making sure this whole thing was really over. Eli tried to sleep, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the canyon, saw Dutch falling, saw Rico charging, saw Klein tumbling from the cliff, more ghosts, more faces to haunt his dreams. He wondered if there'd ever be a night when he didn't wake up screaming, when the weight of what he'd done didn't press down like a stone on his chest. Probably not. Some things you carried forever, but at least now he was carrying them toward something, toward justice, toward accountability, toward being a man Sarah could have been proud of. That was worth something. That was worth everything. Beside him, Nalnish slept, her breathing deep and even. No dreams. Or, if there were dreams, she didn't let them show. Eli envied her that. That strength, that certainty. Maybe someday he'd find it too. The stars turned overhead. The fire burned down to embers. And in Red Rock Canyon, where so many had died, the survivors waited for dawn. Tomorrow they'd ride for Silver Creek. Start the long process of justice. Face judges and juries and lawyers who'd decide what their actions meant, what they deserved, what came next. But tonight, for just a few hours, they rested. And that was enough. Silver Creek, Arizona Territory, August 16, 1887. 11:23 a.m. The town gathered. Word had spread fast. Marshal Bridger had caught Clayton Wade, brought him in, along with Major Webb, along with bodies and testimony and the end of an operation that had been poisoning the territory for 2 years. Sheriff Cooper stood outside his office, uncomfortable, sweating. He'd looked the other way for too long, taken money to ignore things he should have stopped. Now federal law had arrived, and federal law didn't forgive. Bridger rode in first, Wade and Webb on horses, hands cuffed, faces grim. Behind them came Miller and Jones, then Jacob, then Eli and Nalnish. The crowd murmured, pointed. Eli heard fragments. That's Carson. Heard he helped Wade. Heard he freed the Apache woman, fought Wade's men. Don't know what to believe anymore. Neither did Eli, but he sat straight in his saddle, kept his eyes forward, let them stare. Nalnish rode beside him, tall, proud, unbowed. She looked like what she was, a warrior, a survivor, someone who'd walked through hell and come out still standing. Some of the townspeople looked at her with fear, others with curiosity, a few with something that might have been respect. Times were changing, slowly, but changing. Bridger dismounted, handed Wade and Webb over to Cooper. Lock them up. Federal trial in 3 weeks. Don't let anyone near them. No visits, no messages, nothing. Cooper nodded, too intimidated to argue. And Cooper, Bridger's voice went cold. I'll be investigating how Wade operated here for 2 years without interference. If I find you took money, if I find you helped him, you'll be in the cell next to his. Cooper went pale, didn't respond, just took the prisoners inside. Bridger turned to Eli. You're not under arrest. Not yet, but don't leave town. Federal prosecutor will want to talk to you, decide if charges are warranted. I understand. Get that shoulder looked at. Doc Henderson's office is 2 streets over. Tell him I sent you. He'll bill the federal government. Eli nodded, dismounted carefully. His shoulder screamed, his leg throbbed. Everything hurt. Nalnish dismounted too, moved to his side. Silent support. They walked through town together. People stepped aside, made room. Nobody spoke to them. Nobody confronted them. Just watched with cautious eyes. At Doc Henderson's office, an older man with gray hair and steady hands examined Eli's wounds, cleaned them properly, stitched what needed stitching, wrapped what needed wrapping. You're lucky to be alive, Henderson said. Shoulder wounds clean, leg wound too. Another few days without proper care infection would have killed you. How long until I'm healed? 6 weeks for the shoulder, 3 for the leg. Take it easy, no heavy lifting, no riding hard. Just rest. Rest. Eli almost laughed. He didn't remember what rest felt like. Henderson turned to Nalnish, examined her ankles, her wrists, her shoulder, whistled low. You're tougher than most men I know. These wounds should have crippled you, but you're walking, fighting. That's impressive. Apache heal fast, she said simply. Apparently. He cleaned her wounds, applied proper bandages, gave her salve for infection. Come back in 3 days. I'll check progress. Outside the sun was high, hot, merciless. Eli stood on the boardwalk, looked at the town, his town, the place he'd called home for 7 years. It didn't feel like home anymore. Maybe it never had. Just a place to hide, a place to drink, a place to forget. But he couldn't forget anymore, couldn't hide. The past had caught up, and now he had to face it. Where will you stay? Nalnish asked. Don't know. Can't afford the hotel. Ranch is gone. Then we find place together. Share cost. But you don't have to do that. I know. I do it anyway. They found a boarding house on the edge of town. Cheap, clean, 2 rooms. The landlady, Mrs. Chen, looked at them with suspicion. Apache and white man, traveling together, wounded, dangerous. But Bridger had given Eli $20, federal money, for expenses until the trial. It was enough. They took the rooms, rested, finally, really rested. And in Silver Creek, Arizona Territory, in the late summer of 1887, two people who should have been enemies began the slow process of becoming something else. Not friends, not yet, but not enemies either. Just two souls scarred and damaged, learning how to live with the weight of what they'd done. Learning how to forgive themselves. Learning how to be human again. The trial was 3 weeks away. Justice was coming. And Elijah Carson, for the first time in 8 years, was ready to face it. Tucson Federal Court, October 12, 1887, the courtroom smelled like old wood and older sweat. 200 people packed into a space meant for half that. They sat shoulder to shoulder on hard benches, stood against walls, spilled out into the hallway, all of them waiting to see justice done or waiting to see it fail. Eli sat in the front row. His shoulders still ached. The stitches had come out 2 weeks back, leaving an angry red scar that would fade to white over time. Join all the other scars, all the other reminders of choices made and prices paid. Beside him sat Nalnish. She wore a simple dress, dark blue, store-bought, the first white woman's clothing she'd worn in her life. It looked wrong on her, like putting a wolf in sheep's clothing, but it was necessary. The court required propriety, required witnesses to look civilized, whatever that meant. Marshal Bridger sat behind the prosecutor's table. Federal Attorney James Morrison, young, sharp, ambitious. He'd built his case carefully over 3 weeks. Witnesses, documents, evidence, everything needed to put Wade away for life. And he'd done it. The trial had lasted 4 days, 67 counts of trafficking, conspiracy, bribery, attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Wade's own men had testified against him, turned state's witness to save their own skins. Yesterday, the jury had deliberated for 2 hours. This morning, they'd deliver the verdict. Judge Harrison Caldwell sat on the bench. 60 years old, white beard, steel eyes. He'd seen every kind of evil the frontier produced, seen men hang, seen men walk free, seen justice done and justice denied. He banged his gavel. The courtroom fell silent. Bring in the defendants. Guards led Wade and Webb into the courtroom. Both men wore chains, wrist and ankle. The metal clinked with each step. Wade walked with his head high, defiant to the end. Webb just looked tired, hollowed out. A man who'd already accepted his fate. They sat at the defense table. Their lawyer, a public defender named Morris, looked resigned. He'd done his best. It hadn't been enough. Not against the mountain of evidence Morrison had assembled. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Caldwell asked. The foreman stood. Elderly man, rancher by the look of him, sun-weathered, work-hardened. "We have your honor." In the matter of the United States versus Clayton Wade on 67 counts of trafficking in human beings, how do you find guilty on all counts? The courtroom erupted. Cheers, shouts. Wade's face went white, then red, then purple. He lunged to his feet. Guards grabbed him, forced him back down. "Order!" Caldwell's gavel cracked like thunder. "Order in this court!" The noise subsided, slowly, grudgingly. In the matter of the United States versus Marcus Webb on charges of conspiracy and aiding and abetting, how do you find guilty on all counts? Webb didn't react, just sat there, staring at nothing. Caldwell nodded. "Thank you, jury. You are dismissed." He turned to Wade and Webb. "Sentencing will be held in 1 hour. Until then, defendants will be remanded to custody." Guards led them away. Wade was shouting now, cursing, threatening. It didn't matter. The law had spoken. Eli felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief exactly, just the absence of tension that had been coiled there for 2 months. Nalnish's hand found his, squeezed once, brief, then released. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate, just nodded. Acknowledgement that justice, however imperfect, had been done. "Mr. Carson." Eli turned. Morrison stood there, young face, old eyes. The judge wants to see you in chambers, now." Eli's stomach dropped. This was it, the moment he'd been dreading. His own reckoning. He followed Morrison through a side door, down a hallway, into a small office lined with law books and legal precedent. Judge Caldwell sat behind his desk. Bridger stood by the window. Both men looked at Eli with expressions that gave nothing away. "Sit," Caldwell said. Eli sat. "You took $800 to guard a human being in a cage." "Yes, Your Honor." "You knew it was wrong." "Yes, Your Honor." "But you did it anyway, for money, to save your ranch." "Yes, Your Honor." Caldwell leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, studied Eli like a specimen under glass. "Then you changed your mind, freed her, fought Wade's men, nearly died doing it." "Yes, Your Honor." "Why?" The question hung in the air. Eli thought about it, really thought. About Sarah, about Camp Apache, about the cage, about Nalnish's eyes, about the man he'd been and the man he wanted to become. "Because keeping her in that cage would have killed me," Eli said slowly. "Not my body, my soul. I'd already killed it once, at Camp Apache, shot a woman in the back, spent 8 years drinking to forget. When Wade offered me money, I saw a chance to save my ranch. But what I was really doing was selling what was left of me." He paused, swallowed hard. "Nalnish made me look at myself, really look. And I saw a coward, a man who followed orders, who took money, who let other people make his choices for him. I didn't want to be that man anymore, so I changed. Maybe too late, maybe not enough, but I changed." Caldwell was quiet for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside the courthouse buzzed with people waiting, watching, judging. "Marshal Bridger has recommended leniency," Caldwell said finally. "He says you cooperated fully, testified truthfully, risked your life to stop Wade. That counts for something." "With respect, Your Honor, it shouldn't. I still took the money, still put her in danger. Intentions don't erase actions." "No, they don't. But the law allows for mitigating circumstances, for redemption, for men who choose to be better than their worst moment." Caldwell leaned forward. "Elijah Carson, you are hereby found guilty of conspiracy to aid and abet human trafficking. The sentence is time served plus 2 years probation. You will report to Marshal Bridger monthly. You will perform 100 hours of community service. You will not leave the Arizona Territory without permission. And you will live the rest of your life knowing what you did, what you almost became. Do you accept these terms?" Eli's throat closed up. He'd expected prison, 5 years, 10, maybe hanging. But this was mercy he didn't deserve. "I accept, Your Honor." "Good, because if I ever see you in my courtroom again, if you ever take money to hurt another human being, I will throw away the key. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then get out of my office. Go live. Be better. That's the best punishment I can give you, the burden of actually having to become the man you claim you want to be." Eli stood, turned to leave. "Mr. Carson," he stopped. "Your wife, Sarah, she would be proud of what you did, even if you're not proud of what came before. Remember that." Eli nodded, couldn't speak, just nodded. Outside, Nalnish waited. She read his face, understood immediately. "You are free? Probation, community service, but yes, free." She smiled. Small, real. "Good. You deserve freedom. You earned it." "What about you? When do you leave?" "Tomorrow, at dawn. South to my people. The trial is done. Justice is done. Now I go home." Tomorrow. The word hit like a fist. Eli had known this was coming. Known from the start that Nalnish would leave, that she had a life, a family, a world that didn't include him. But knowing and accepting were different things. "The 9 children," he said. "Are they safe?" "Yes," Marshal Bridger checked. "All 9 are with families, protected. They will grow up free. Because of you. Because I chose to fight, same as you chose to free me. We all make choices. Those choices echo." They stood in the courthouse hallway. People flowed around them. Strangers, witnesses, lawyers, everyone moving, everyone busy, everyone with somewhere to be. "I wish things were different," Eli said quietly. "I wish I'd met you some other way. Wish I hadn't been the man who caged you, who killed your sister. But you were, and I was the woman you freed, the warrior who fought beside you. We cannot change the past, only what we do with it. Will I ever see you again?" Nalnish looked at him, really looked. Those dark eyes that had seen so much, survived so much. "I do not know. Different worlds, different lives. But I will remember you, Elijah Carson, the white man who chose honor over gold, who stood when he could have run. That is worth remembering. I'll remember you too, the woman who saved 9 children, who taught me what courage looks like." She reached out, placed her hand over his heart. The gesture was formal, sacred, an Apache blessing. "Walk in honor," she said. "Let your choices be worthy of the pain they cost." Then she turned, walked away, disappeared into the crowd. Eli stood alone in the courthouse hallway, watching her go, knowing he'd never see her again, knowing that was right, necessary. Some people entered your life to save you, then left so you could save yourself. That afternoon, Wade and Webb were sentenced. Wade got 25 years in a federal prison in Kansas. No parole, no clemency. He'd die in a cell, old, forgotten, despised. Webb got 15 years. He'd taken the plea, testified, showed remorse. It bought him a decade of difference. As they led Wade out, he saw Eli in the crowd. Their eyes met. Wade smiled, cold, mean. "This isn't over, Carson. I got friends. They'll find you, and when they do, you'll wish you'd left me that Apache." Eli held his gaze. "I'll be ready." Wade's smile faded. Guards pulled him away. Down the hallway, through the doors, gone. Bridger approached Eli, handed him a paper. "Travel permit, good for 6 months. In case you need to leave the territory for work, for life, just check in with me first." "Thank you, Marshal." "Don't thank me. You earned this the hard way. Most men don't get a second chance. You got one. Don't waste it." "I won't." Bridger nodded, started to leave, stopped. "The woman. Nalnish. She's leaving tomorrow." "Yes." "You going to try to stop her?" "No, she's free. Has her own life to live. I'm not part of it. Probably for the best. White man and Apache woman. In this territory, in these times, that's a hard road. Every road's hard, just depends on whether you walk it alone or with someone." Bridger smiled. "Wisdom. From a man who didn't have any 3 months ago. You're learning, Carson." He left. Eli stood in the empty courtroom. The benches were vacant now. The gallery cleared. Just wood and air and the ghost of justice served. Eli thought about Sarah, about her grave, about the promise he'd made. He'd kept it. Finally. After 8 years of failure, of cowardice, of running, he'd stood, faced himself, became something better. Not perfect, not whole, but better. That was enough. Silver Creek, Arizona Territory, April 3rd, 1888, 6:17 a.m. 6 months had passed like water through fingers, fast, quiet, unremarkable. Eli had rebuilt, not the ranch. That was gone. Sold to pay remaining debts. But he'd built something new. A small house, 1 room, adobe walls, tin roof, sturdy, simple, clean. It sat 5 miles outside Silver Creek, far enough for privacy, close enough for community. He'd found work, odd jobs mostly, fixing fences, breaking horses, teaching shooting to townspeople who wanted to learn. Honest work. Hard work. The kind that let you sleep at night. The probation was going well. Bridger checked in monthly, nodded approval at the progress, at the man Eli was becoming, slowly, painfully, but becoming. The nightmares hadn't stopped. Camp Apache still haunted his sleep. Chihini still fell, still bled, still died. But now there were other dreams too, good ones. Dreams where he opened the cage, where he stood against Wade, where he chose right instead of easy. Those dreams were new, fragile, but real. Eli stood on his porch, watched the sun rise over the desert, pink, orange, gold, the sky that Shihini had seen last, the beauty that had framed her death. He thought about Naelnish, wondered where she was, if she was safe, if the 9 children had grown, if she'd found peace. He'd never know, and that was okay. Some people weren't meant to stay. They were meant to change you, then leave so the change could take root. A horse approached, single rider, coming from town. Eli's hand drifted to his gun, old habits. But he didn't draw, just watched, waited. The rider was Jacob So, Running Bear, Bridger's deputy. He dismounted, approached the porch. "Morning, Eli." "Jacob, what brings you out here?" "Message from down south, near the border." He handed Eli a folded paper. "Woman asked me to deliver it. Said you'd know who it was from. Didn't give a name. Just said, tell you the 9 children are safe, growing, learning, living free." Eli's hand shook as he took the paper, unfolded it. Inside was a single sentence, written in careful, unpracticed English. "You kept your promise. Walk in honor. No signature, no name. Just those words." Eli read them 3 times, then folded the paper, put it in his pocket, over his heart. "You okay?" Jacob asked. "Yeah, better than okay." Jacob nodded, understood without needing explanation. He remounted, rode away. Eli stood alone on his porch. The sun climbed higher. Heat began to build. Another day, another chance. He thought about Sarah, about the grave behind the old ranch house. He visited once a month, brought flowers, talked to her, told her about his progress, about the man he was becoming. She never answered, but he felt her anyway, in the wind, in the quiet, in the slow, steady work of redemption. "I did it, Sarah," he said quietly. "Took a long time, but I did it. I'm not the man who ran from battle, not the man who shot an unarmed woman, not the man who took blood money." He paused, listened to the desert. "I'm not perfect. Still got a long way to go, but I'm trying, every day. That's what you wanted, right?" "For me to try," the wind whispered through the mesquite. If he listened hard enough, it almost sounded like yes. Eli went inside, made coffee, ate breakfast, prepared for the day ahead. Fence work over at the Morrison spread. Honest labor. Fair pay. Simple. But before he left, he walked to the small shelf he'd built. On it sat 3 things. Sarah's Bible, worn, loved, open to Psalms. The letter from Naelnish, 4 words, a lifetime of meaning. And a small stone, red sandstone, from Red Rock Canyon, from the place where everything changed. He touched each one, gently, reverently. Then he put on his hat, stepped outside, mounted his horse, and rode toward the rest of his life. Epilogue: the desert remembers, long after people forget, long after names fade and stories blur. The desert remembers. Red Rock Canyon still stands. The walls still rise 200 feet. The stone still bleeds red in the sunset. And if you know where to look, you can still see the scars. Bullet holes, blast marks. The places where men fought and died and chose who they wanted to be. Elijah Carson lived 40 more years, died in 1927 at the age of 78, never remarried, never left Arizona Territory, just worked, built, helped. He became a carpenter, built houses for families who couldn't afford them, taught young men how to shoot, how to track, how to survive. But more importantly, he taught them how to choose, how to stand when standing was hard, how to be better than your worst moment. When he died, they buried him next to Sarah. Simple grave, simple marker. Just 2 names and 2 dates. But 300 people came to the funeral, mostly Apache, from across the territory, from Mexico, from reservations near and far. They came to honor the white man who'd chosen right when wrong was easier, who'd freed one of their own, who'd stood against evil even when evil had all the power. Nalnish lived to be 87. Died in 1942. She never saw Eli again after that day in the courthouse, but she told his story over and over to her people, to the 9 children she'd saved, to their children, to anyone who would listen. She called him Tseyi Ish, man who broke chains, and the name stuck. In Apache oral history, there is a story about a white soldier who killed many people, who carried guilt like a stone, who was given a chance at redemption, and who took it. The story says he freed a warrior woman from an iron cage, that he fought 7 men to protect her, that he chose honor over gold, courage over cowardice, justice over comfort. The story says he changed, and in changing, he proved that change was possible, that no man is only his worst moment, that redemption isn't easy, but it's real, that honor isn't what you did, it's what you do next. The iron cage still exists, stored in a museum in Tucson. Rust claimed most of it. But the shape remains, 8 feet by 8 feet, prison bars thick as thumbs. Children look at it and ask what it was for. Their parents tell them about slavery, about trafficking, about the men who bought and sold human beings, and about the men who stopped them, about federal marshals who rode 40 miles to do what was right, about warriors who saved children, about broken men who found the strength to stand. The stories vary, details change. Names get confused, but the truth remains. In August of 1887, in Red Rock Canyon, Arizona Territory, 7 men rode in to commit evil, and 2 people stood against them, not because it was easy, not because they were heroes, but because when the moment came, they chose. And sometimes that's all it takes. One choice, one stand, one moment of courage in a lifetime of fear. To break the chains, to walk in honor, to prove that redemption, however hard, however painful, however impossible it seems, is always within reach. If you're willing to pay the price, Elijah Carson paid it, in blood, in sweat, in 40 years of honest work. And when he died clean. That's not victory, not really, but it's something. It's enough. The end.